Hi everyone, it's Phil Frost from Main Street ROI, and I also have Elena Courtney from Weebly. Welcome,
Hi.
Elena.
Hi everyone, Elena here. So glad to be here today.
And we are going to be walking through how UX or user experience and web design are now critical for SEO or search engine optimization. Just some housekeeping. If you're new to GoToWebinar, I encourage you to post questions into the questions box. It should be in the upper right-hand corner of your screen. I see Dave already figured that out. Welcome, Dave from Seattle. I always recommend you turn off distractions. You'll get the most out of this if you're not trying to also scroll through Facebook or your Twitter feed. And I did have one poll, and we'll do that right now, just to get a sense for who's on the line. If you're currently working with an SEO agency, the answers are yes, no, or the third one is we are an agency or I am a consultant. Looks like some answers are coming in. I'll give that just 3 more seconds here. Looks like about 30% are working with an agency and another 20% on the line are agencies or consultants. All right, appreciate the feedback there. And before we get started, if this is your first Main Street ROI presentation, you're wondering who the heck am I? Again, my name is Phil Frost. I'm the founder of Main Street ROI. Our business provides digital marketing services like SEO, online advertising, email marketing, and WordPress development. And we also provide a lot of training. We have a lot of free webinars like this one you're on today. We publish a lot of free information on our blog and via our email newsletter. And then we have some more in-depth courses, and you can check those out at mainstreetroi.com/training. Those are our paid courses. And to date, we've helped over 2,000 businesses with their digital marketing. And our thought leadership has been featured in Forbes, Inc., Amex, as well as Mashable. And I'm also the very proud father of these cute kids here. We've got Violet on the left. She is just over 5, or she'll tell you she's 5 1/4. And that is my chubby son, which my wife doesn't like me saying, but that's what he is. That's Emmett. He's just over 3, turned 3 in April. My beautiful wife, Erin, in the middle. And I'm proud to say both my kids ran a race over the weekend. That was their first race. I'm also a runner along with my wife. And Elena, I'll let you introduce yourself.
Sure. Hi everyone, Elena here again, and I work at Weebly. So we're based in San Francisco, but I have a couple of offices around the world. And here at Weebly, I am a content marketing and organic growth manager. So if you haven't heard about our platform, we're basically a really easy to use, powerful e-commerce platform. And so we specialize in small businesses and entrepreneurs. And aside from just the website building functionality, we have a whole suite of e-commerce tools, making it really easy to get set up and selling online, including email marketing, SEO functionalities built right into the platform, and more. So come check us out if you haven't already.
All right, here's what we're going to cover. We're going to talk about some important SEO trends you must know about. Not only are we going to talk about the trends, but also what you should do about them. And then Elaine is going to touch on keys to designing a website that not only ranks, but also drives sales. We do have a special offer at the end, and we'll have live Q&A. All right, so I'm going to start. I'm going to go through 3 important SEO trends, and then I'll pass it over to Elena for the second half. So the first SEO trend you need to be aware of is that your prospects are demanding mobile-friendly websites. This should be nothing new. This is actually a fairly old graph here showing that mobile traffic online actually surpassed desktop traffic back in 2014. So that's, again, nothing new, but that trend is still growing. More and more people are on their mobile devices trying to find businesses and actually calling businesses and even making online transactions via their mobile phone. So what are people doing on mobile? This is from Google. They did some research here. 82% of smartphone users say they use search to find local businesses. I know personally I'm doing that. My wife is a big fan of just going to Google and finding a business online. I'm sure a lot of folks on the line do that as well. And the three key takeaways for this trend is that you obviously need to make your website mobile responsive. That's been preached for several years now. Unfortunately, a lot of businesses have ignored it. And the reality is, if you don't have a mobile-friendly site, you are definitely losing leads and sales. There's just no question about it. The other thing to keep in mind is that there's a difference in how people use desktop, how they use a website on their desktop versus a mobile. So you want to think about the sales path and how that might be different for a desktop versus somebody using a mobile device. Classic example, if somebody's using a mobile device, they're obviously literally using a phone, and you can have calls to action to just click to call your business. So rather than having the phone number displayed just as text, or just having a call to action to fill out a form, you should definitely consider having a nice big button, click here to call us today, or click here to schedule an appointment. Other key takeaway, unfortunately there's no silver bullet to this problem, but you do need to start thinking about how you're going to track across devices. More and more people are not only just using mobile devices, but they're using multiple devices before they make a purchase. So that means somebody might be doing research while they're waiting in line on their mobile device. They find your business, they read more about you on the website, then they go home, and maybe a couple days pass, and they go back onto their desktop computer, find your business, and make a purchase. So you want to be able to track that type of behavior, which is tracking across devices. Our trend number 2, not only are prospects demanding mobile-friendly websites, Google's now demanding it. If you're not aware, Google is moving to the mobile-first index. This is actually in progress right now. They posted this back in 2016, so obviously it took a while, but Google has been gearing up for this change. It took a lot of work on their end, but they're finally rolling it out. What this means is previously Google would go to your desktop website and make decisions about how your website should rank in the Google search results. Now they're flipping that, and they're actually going to go to your mobile device first. That's what mobile first indexing means. They're going to take a look at your mobile website first, determine how you should rank in the search engine. And again, that's because more people are actually using Google on a mobile device. So it naturally made sense for Google to switch their algorithms and actually look at the mobile device first rather than looking at desktop. So there's 5 key takeaways for this. First, you need to test your website. You can go to search.google.com/test/mobile-friendly. You'll get a copy of these slides, and in the slides you'll just be able to click on that link. That will test your site to see if it's mobile friendly. Then you also want to take a look at page speed with ranking mobile websites. Google factors page speed into the algorithm, and that can be a critical factor if you have a slow loading site, because obviously nobody wants to click on a website in the search results and have it just be very slow to load. They'll likely just click back and find another website. Google knows that, so they don't want to rank pages that are slow in the first page. The other thing you can do, if you haven't already, get Search Console set up. That is Google's tool to, it's a free tool. It gives you a lot of insight into how Google is reading your website, if there are any errors that they're finding, and specifically with mobile, there's a report there under search traffic. It's called the Mobile Usability Report. And Google will literally tell you if they find issues with your mobile usability. And then you would obviously need to fix that. Fourth key takeaway, you want to think about adding structured data to your mobile pages. This is a little bit technical, and it gets into some of the rich cards and rich snippets that you're starting to see on the first page of Google. And the way those show up, Google uses structured data to read information on your site, and then Google use that as rich snippets or rich cards on the first page. The reason you need to add that to your mobile page, again, is because Google is moving to this mobile first index. So anything that you have on your desktop version, you want to make sure you have that set up on your mobile site as well. And lastly, along these same lines, you want to make sure you have content on your mobile site. A lot of businesses a while ago set up separate mobile versions of their site, and those sites might be a little bit thin on content because when you're on a mobile device, you don't generally need or want to read a lot of content. But if that's the case, again, Google's going to be going to that mobile version and seeing what's on those on those pages. So you want to make sure you have all of the content that's on your desktop version also on your mobile website as well. And trend number 3 is that UX or user experience and usability is now a ranking factor. And just some definitions here. These get confused pretty frequently. So user experience or UX is really answering the question, did your visitor enjoy using your website? So did they have a good experience? Versus usability is more about, did your visitor easily find what she was looking for? So I just saw something. Gwen said no audio. Tony said something not quite right. Hopefully you guys can hear me. Elena, I know you can. So I think we're good with audio. And unfortunately, if you're having audio, you can't hear me. But what I would recommend is just making sure the settings on your computer are correct. All right, so this slide here, just defining user experience and usability, so you understand those two distinct terms. And then how they affect SEO, as you can imagine, if you have a poor user experience or poor usability, that's basically going to lead people to leaving your site pretty quickly. They're not going to be happy when they get to your site. And believe it or not, Google can actually measure that. Google can measure the time when somebody searches and clicks on your website, and then how long it takes them to come back to Google and potentially do another search. And as you can imagine, if somebody clicks on your website and very quickly jumps back to Google to go to another website, that's basically a negative signal to Google saying, hey, they didn't find what they wanted, it was poor usability, or maybe they had a bad user experience on your site. And another key point here is that with Google Chrome, that's a browser that you may be using, Google can actually measure clicks through your site, and they can use that information to get a sense for if people are having a good user experience or if the site has a good usability and people are finding what they need. So 5 takeaways here. I highly recommend this book. I read it, I don't know how many years ago, probably 10 years ago. It's called Don't Make Me Think. Just a great book about designing a website, and as the title implies, you want to design a website so that you don't make the user think at all, just make it very intuitive. It gets into just best practices for user experience and usability. You also want to choose colors carefully. Again, you'll get a link to this. It's a link to an infographic which has more information about how colors influence basically the psychology of colors, which is pretty interesting. You also want to be keeping a close eye on your Google Analytics data, monitoring time on site and bounce rates, especially from your organic search traffic, because again, Google's measuring that as well. And if you find very high bounce rates and not a lot of time on your site from your search traffic, then unfortunately that is negatively impacting your search rankings. We already touched on this. Make sure your page speed is fast. That is the tool to test that. That tool will also give you ideas to make your page speed faster. And the fifth takeaway, going back to mobile friendly. So if you don't have a mobile optimized site, Google by default will then, obviously you're just going to send people to your desktop version if it's not mobile friendly. And if you've ever tried to go to a desktop version of a site using a mobile device, you've probably experienced a lot of frustration. Nearly impossible to navigate using just your thumb, trying to click on those very small links. Google knows that, and the data would likely highlight that because a lot of people would be bouncing from your site very quickly, and again, that's going to hurt your rankings. All right, with that, I'll pass it to Elena.
Awesome. Hi, guys. So I'm going to talk you through kind of the keys to designing a website that both ranks and converts. So headings is where we're going to start, and these should really serve as a content preview for both users and search engines. So what we really mean by that is you should kind of think about headings as road signs. So much like navigation links, headings really tell visitors where they've been and also where they're going. And they can really help increase scannability of content for visitors, and those visitors do include search engines. So headings do show a clear hierarchy, and they can be shown in one of two ways. So there's indentation, and then there's header tags. So indentation differentiates really between the parent and child content, where the parent content is going to be more important and should more likely be read before the child content. And then you've probably heard of header tags when people talk about SEO. So there's H1 through H6 header tags, and a couple variables like font, color, and size of the text can really vary depending on the tag. So it might be important to note that while you might use H1 through H6 tags multiple times on one page, or perhaps not at all, you should really be only using one H1 tag. So this is telling both visitors and search engines that this is the most important title on your page, and more likely than not, this is actually the page's title. So you can see an example here on Weebly.com. So this is the H1 tag. It's in the forefront. It's the biggest title on the page. And then subsequently, there's H2 to H3 tags further down on the page. So our second point is really taking the time to focus on your website structure, and it will really pay off in the end. So navigation is going to be the next really important element of your website. So when you're thinking about your design, once again, think about it from a user perspective as well as from the Google bots perspective. So navigation should always be really clean, simple, and easy to use, especially since you'll likely be getting referral traffic that bypasses your homepage. So sometimes less is more here. You don't want your users to get lost, and you really want to tell people, like, these are the primary pages on my website. And the navigation should also be consistent throughout the site. So some people kind of talk about this term sticky nav. So that just really means that wherever you are on the site, the navigation can tell you where you are It tells you where the most important pages are, so you can always come back to those. You really want to be sure that you aren't providing dead ends within your site that leave visitors unclear on where to go next or how to get back to where they were. Okay, so again, you really want to be thoughtful and considerate of both viewers and search engines. And for me, this is really kind of the #1 rule when it comes to SEO. So search engines are getting smarter and smarter. So we really want to be cognizant of the actual human visitor to the site when thinking about how you're designing them. So again, be both thoughtful and considerate of both viewers and search engines. And this really means that you should ensure there are no menus, drop-downs, or pop-ups that block content or make viewing that page really difficult. So here we have an example from Anthem Health where the menu pop-up takes over the entire page. So this is kind of a intrusive user experience for someone who's just trying to view the content on that page. You'll also want to cleanly structured pages that search engines can successfully crawl, which will result in site links, which you'll see here on the right. So these are hyperlinked to your website subpages in the Google search results. So again, this is where it comes in as telling not only humans, but the search bots what's really important. Okay, so Phil already covered this, but it is kind of the golden rule right now in SEO, but the truth really is mobile first right now. So what does this really mean when you're thinking about designing your website? You should really be conscious of the devices used to access any website. So really think about this when you're browsing the web yourself. So for me, I'm often doing this on my phone during a commute. You probably do use your laptop and desktop as well, but as we saw from the trend earlier, mobile is really surpassing desktop traffic. So kind of a golden rule here when you are actually thinking about starting a website or designing your website, you don't want to wait until your website is published to start thinking about what it's going to look like or act like on mobile. So all the points we talked about for headers, navigation, these points should still be considered when concerning your mobile version of your website. So all the fundamentals should remain the same on mobile as well, but perhaps they're even more important because you have less space to work with. So when you are starting your site, it's really the time to start editing it and editing kind of how you're presented to the world. So while a large button, for example, here might look great on your website from a computer, that same button might take up the entire screen on a mobile device, which is something that you might not consider when designing it on desktop. So I always do a check is to take out your phone and see how that piece of content or how that page really looks like on a mobile device, because you're often, more times than not, designing it on desktop. You should also really think about the number of elements that you have on the page and how that might impact loading time or the site speed on a mobile device. So your visitors will have very little patience for a site that takes a long time to load. So some of the tools that Bill mentioned earlier, you can easily check your site speed with Google. And those are really resources that you should tap into to kind of check this out once your website is designed. Okay, right. I'll hand it back over.
Did promise a couple special offers. So the first one is from Main Street ROI. I mentioned we have some more in-depth training on our site. And the special offer here is 3 of those 90-minute video training courses. First one is the complete SEO tune-up, the local SEO formula. That's how to get your website to rank high in the Google map results, or what's called local SEO. An introduction to Google Analytics and how to track your digital marketing, including your search engine optimization. And you can see those are on our site. They're sold separately for $97 each, so it's a total value of $291. And attendees will get everything for only $97 by going to mainstreetroi.com/SEO bundle. And again, you'll get a copy of this, so you can just click right on the link.
Okay, cool. And for Weebly, we actually start out at free, so anybody can go ahead and get started at zero cost to them for some of the basic plans if you want to start creating a website, a blog, or portfolio. And if you do graduate on to an online store plan, we have options for that as well. So you can find all the plans and pricing at www.weebly.com.
And you can see those links are at the bottom of this screen. So if you didn't catch that, mainstreetroi.com/SEO bundle and Weebly.com. And if you have questions, we've got plenty of time for Q&A. And while people are typing away, I want to remind everyone to please complete the survey at the end. So when we eventually do close out, you'll get redirected to a 4 or 5 question survey. Would love to get your feedback. And I do not see any questions coming in. I will give it a couple minutes. Not sure what happened with the audio. Tony made a comment there. Something was not quite right. All right, happy to stay on, answer questions if you have them. Here we go. Howard had a question. How do you assess user experience as it impacts Google rankings? So as far as reviewing the impact of user experience, you really want to take a look at your Google Analytics metrics, like your bounce rate from your organic search traffic. The way to do that is to go into Google Analytics, go into, I believe it's called acquisition, and then all traffic, and then it's called channels. It's called the channels report in Google Analytics. And one of the channels by default is organic search. And you'll, on that row, you can change the date range. You can see for a particular date range, all of your traffic from organic search, and then your behavioral metrics like bounce rate and time on site. And that's what you want to keep a close eye on to see if you have a high bounce rate from organic search, or if people are not spending a lot of time on your site from organic search. That would be negatively impacting your SEO from a usability or user experience standpoint. Let's see, some more questions here. Lisa asked, will you be sending out a replay? So we will. We did record this, and we'll be sending the replay along with the slides typically in the next 24 hours. This name I do not know how to pronounce. I apologize. I think it's Lizel. Can a template help or hurt your SEO? I believe you're referring to using a template that maybe Weebly would provide, or WordPress templates. And by using a template that's, just generally speaking, is not going to help or hurt your SEO. But Elena, if you want to speak specifically about Weebly, that might help.
Yeah, definitely. So using a template with Weebly will definitely not hurt your SEO. It actually is probably better because all of the elements are already pre-configured for you. So you don't really have to worry about kind of like the back-end work. All you'd really need to do with Weebly is select your template and fill in your metadata, and then you'll be good to go.
Okay, great. So Howard had a follow-up here. Do you also look at where visitors are focusing on a page? Howard, I believe you're referring to maybe a heat map as far as where people are moving their mouse on a page, and that is something you could definitely look at if you wanted to specifically measure and get a better feel for usability issues or user experience issues, heat maps can be a great tool to do that. If you're not familiar with heat maps, all that is it's measuring where the mouse is going and where the mouse is clicking on a particular page. And a good example of what you could find, and I've seen this before, you might find that people are putting their mouse over a picture and actually clicking on it. They think it's clickable. That's a usability issue that you might uncover using a heat map, and then you would realize, oh, people are clicking that image. You obviously should make that clickable because people think that it should be, and you should send them where they think they should be going. Maybe they're clicking on something that looks like a button. Let's see. Wendy had a question specific to SEMrush, asking about how it rates you on readability. I don't know specifically what you're referring to. I don't use SEOrush on a daily basis, but I am familiar with the tools like SEO Yoast, I believe, has a tool about, and we'll take a look at the readability of a page. And there's different tools out there that will grade kind of the what grade you're writing at. If it's like 8th grade level or 3rd grade level writing. I believe, Wendy, that's what you're referring to, and it's really just more a grade about the content on the page and how well it's written. And that is a factor as well. If you have poorly written content on a page, that's going to hurt your SEO. That is something that Google will take a look at. So from a search engine standpoint, that's a negative signal. And then just from a human standpoint, obviously if somebody's coming to your website and reading a poorly written page, that would negatively impact your business. That person's likely not going to trust you and refer anyone to you. So that just generally you want to improve the quality of the content on your site. I see some more questions here. This one's from GP. Is Google AMP the same as making a website mobile responsive? So the short answer is no. AMP it stands for Accelerated Mobile Pages. Elena, are you familiar with AMP, and does Weebly address that at all?
So all of our Weebly websites are already pre-configured for mobile, but is Google AMP the same as making a website mobile responsive?
So AMP is separate, and it's primarily more for news websites. So if you go on your mobile device and search for the latest news about a particular topic, you will likely get a lot of AMP pages. They're accelerated mobile pages, and they are, you can think of it like light HTML. So there's regular HTML, which is how websites are built, and AMP is just a very scaled down version of HTML. It's very simple, so it loads much faster. But there are pros and cons to it, and it's very much on the cutting edge of mobile pages. And at this point, for businesses, I would say you don't need to do too much. You can, sit tight and see kind of how this plays out. It's really geared more towards news-heavy websites that are publishing a lot of content that then Google will show in the mobile results, and they do prefer to show those AMP pages just because they are super fast. And then Wendy had a follow-up about is less copy better? It's kind of a loaded question. So that depends. It depends on who you're targeting, how complicated your product or service is. If you're giving something away for free, that's very straightforward, and you're just asking for an email address, you probably don't need a lot of copy. If you are selling a complicated service that it has some education involved to educate the prospect on why they need it, how you're different than other service providers, you're probably going to need more copy just from a sales perspective. And then if you're just specifically talking about SEO, more content is generally better just because Google is trying to rank websites that give a really good user experience. And just generally speaking, the more content on the page, the higher likelihood that the person is going to be satisfied when they come to that page, is likely going to have the answer to their question versus a page that just has a couple words on it. So that's just kind of a high-level answer. I don't know if, Elena, you want to
Yeah, I think
that as well?
right. I think it depends on the purpose of the page. You don't want more content if it's going to make it difficult for the user to digest information and to understand kind of what's going on that page. So if it's a product page, for example, I think having clear images, clear product descriptions, concise information, really focusing on the key terms that you're trying to target, I think that's great. If it's more of a content page, so maybe it's a blog or a white paper, whatever it is, then yeah, long form content typically leads to longer time on page, which is then good for your SEO rankings, because Google kind of says like, okay, people are interested in this and they're spending more time on this page, so I'm going to rank it higher in search results. But I think it really depends on the page, and as long as the content is high quality, and again, going back to kind of having a clear navigation and a clear headings system, then I think you're okay.
And there's another question here specifically about Weebly from GP, asking, for a Weebly website, do we need a separate SEO plugin or app for on-page SEO?
No, you do not. Yeah, so everything's built into our editor, and you'll see that under settings and SEO.
Okay, and then Stephanie had an interesting question here. So she said, you mentioned Google keeping track of how long people spend on a mobile site before leaving. What would happen if someone was double checking an address or that type of info and then they left? They have an answer to their question, but it didn't require that much time. So I do want to clarify, there is a difference between someone going to your site and then leaving versus someone doing a Google search, going to your site, leaving, and then going back to Google, and then maybe doing another search or clicking on a different result. So obviously in the latter scenario, somebody's going to your site, leaving quickly, doing another search, or clicking on another result. That tells Google they didn't find what they wanted on your site. So that's a negative signal. If someone was just going to your site, grabbed the address, and then closed out of the browser, that's not a negative signal for Google. Let's see. Bob has an image question. What do you recommend for number and size of images per page, considering the issues related to mobile? Elena, I don't know if you guys have any best practices or information around that.
Yeah, I think as long as you can run it through kind of the Google Site Speed tool, which will be included on this deck, I think that's a really good gut check to see as long as the page loads quickly, because if it has a longer load time, especially on mobile, it's going to cause a higher bounce rate. So I would recommend, definitely don't be afraid to use images. Images can actually help improve your SEO by having like more rich content on the page, and you can use alt tags So I would just make sure that the load time is within a couple seconds or less.
Yeah, and from a technical standpoint, you can talk to your developers. I guess I don't know how that would work with Weebly. That's probably built in, but there's a way to load images differently.
Yep.
So like the page doesn't have to wait, essentially.
Right, yeah, you can compress images. There's a lot of free tools online. So to get kind of a lower resolution that still looks good, a lot of times we compress images so they load faster. So that's another option.
All right, I think we got through all the questions. I'll give it one more minute here. I think we are good. Elena, if you have any final words, let me know. Otherwise, thank you for joining. I think this was great.
No, thank you guys so much. Yeah, feel free to reach out to Elena at Weebly.com if you have any other questions. But yeah, thanks for having me.
All right, everyone. If you could please complete the survey at the end, you'll get redirected right away. If you're interested in learning more about Weebly, go to Weebly.com. If you're interested in the SEO bundle, you go to mainstreetroi.com/SEO bundle. All right, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your Tuesday. Happy May 1st, and hope to see you on a future webinar. Take care.
Bye.